All right, hello. I have a video for the Void. Today we're going to talk about my art fight drawings this year. Before we go into the recording, though, I figured I'd talk a little bit about my process. Um, so this year I utilized gradient maps and gamut masks. This is the first time I've ever used Krita's gamut masking, and it was really helpful for my choice paralysis. But let's go into the gradient map first, which is what I used for a lot of my underpainting. So here I have just a random ass picture from my files, and I desaturated it because gradient maps only work in grayscale. So if we go over here, I just threw a random gradient on it. Basically, you can just use a gradient to colorize. So we can choose some random other gradient, maybe this one, and that looks like shit, but here we go. And you can kind of like move the values around a little bit. Like I can brighten this by moving this closer. Right? Now it's more green. Here's a picture I found on the internet by Rakuri, I think is the name of this artist. And this is just an example of the same image painted in grayscale with various different gradient maps over it. And here's a work file from artfight that has a gradient map underpainting. So this is what it looks like with just the gradient map. And you can see it goes to grayscale when I turn it off. And then this above it is just the overpainting, which I didn't really change the colors that much. So if you look over here, this is the particular gamut mask that I used for this image. And you can see my base color palette here that I've created before. Basically, I just wanted to create I think this was like a tri or a tetrad or like a square palette. And then I wanted to have like a good distribution of values. And then this is just helping me remember what the angle was, so that hopefully it helps me not have to make so many decisions in color selection. Like hopefully these should all, if you look with the eyedrop tool, they're all kind of they're in the same like part of the color wheel. So it just helps to create a more cohesive vibe without really having to think about it, which is good because I'm actually not very good at choosing. Like I understand color theory well enough, but I have a hard time like choosing colors. So a lot of this process was me trying to get a little bit better with creating like more experimental and cohesive color palettes. So like a lot of my color palettes originally are based on just like random colors that I generated and then just kind of use that as a base to work. But anyway, let's get into the actual recordings that I took. So here's the first one. I didn't record all of my paintings, but I got about half of them. So yeah, so it's starting in grayscale. And I also created a bunch of little like brush sets to also help with choice paralysis. So I only have about 8 or so brushes to choose from. And this brush set was kind of hard to work with. Like it had one of those ones. Maybe I would have been nice if I could have shown it, but it's one of those brushes where it only kind of fills in the middle rather than putting the color down. Uh, Regardless, it's kind of weird and difficult to work with, and maybe it'll be clear what I'm talking about. If it's not, it's whatever. Um, so yeah, this drawing I decided to draw our sonas together just because they're so like their designs are so wildly distinct. But they made a note about how they like plants. And I also like plants, so I just thought it would be funny to put our characters together, bonding over plants. And I will turn off my little gift tuber guy so that it doesn't cut off anything. So yeah, I liked the line art. I used a kind of a pencil, I think, for this one. But I really enjoy drawing the plants. I really like drawing plants. So yeah, this brush set has a really small uh, line art tool. It's interesting to use really skinny lines, and the a lot of the shading was done with a very weird brush that I didn't quite understand during this one, but I did my best. I streamed a lot of the process, but I feel like it's not super entertaining to watch somebody paint in grayscale. Uh, but I don't know. It made it a lot easier when I like just starting with the values rather than going in with a straight sketch. It helped me sort of plan the compositions a little bit better, I think. But yeah, this I was struggling with the shading because I could not understand how the fuck it's meant to like emulate a pencil, but it works very strangely. Like you're meant to fill large areas, so it's not very intuitive how it works. Like it's sort of rather than do the the line as a brush you would expect, it sort of fills only the inner part in. Oh, and I also have a like a simulated watercolor brush in this set, which is pretty interesting to work with. It did a pretty good job of simulating the watercolor. Like the darkness of it uh, was impacted by like how long you held the pen on the canvas. Yeah, and here I just it's immediately colorized because I put in my gradient map, and now I have my underpainting. So yeah, I guess I could talk a little bit about my experience in art fight this year. This is my second year doing art fight. Um, and I'm not really on social media. I know there was like there was some kind of contention. I didn't really follow it because I don't like I'm not on TikTok at all. Uh, I like watch YouTube videos in the background while I'm working, but other than that, I'm not very checked in. Um, but yeah, so here's my finished illustration. This one, the colors are not very vibrant, but I kind of like it. I kind of like its low-key look. And it's just a really amusing scene to illustrate. I really liked this one. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this is my second year at Art Fight. I really just love drawing other people's characters. Um, so yeah, this one was a struggle for me. But starting with blocking rather than the sketch really helped me figure out the pose. Um, and also this brush set is cool. It's like the whole brush set is like simulated pencils, if I recall correctly, which when you use pencil, like you can really push values around. So I probably did like more shading than I should have before setting the gradient mask. Like the thing you have to consider, or as I was going through this project, was like learning the extent to which I should shade before applying the gradient map. Um, because I would like accidentally do too much work and then plug in my gradient map, and then it turns out that the character in the reference actually has like wildly different colors than the base palette that I decided on. So I ended up having to like repaint or redo more than I should have. So that's definitely a risk using this method. Like you gotta know to just like stop and move on to the next step. But like with this brush set, it was so easy to just like get really into all the details because it's so easy to like push values around when you're working in pencil. Um, I struggled so much with the expression because it's a really cute like alien character, but I think I just went too realistic with it. Like I wasn't sure like how far to push the like imagined face muscles. I feel like I should have gone for a much more stylized look with this one. But I learned it's all about learning. Uh the line art though is so nice. This pencil is so good to do lines in. It just I don't know. For me, line art is my favorite part. I fucking hate coloring, which is part of the reason I decided on trying to use oh God, those eyes are off center. This is part of the reason I decided to use um like gamut masking and gradient maps so I could make less decisions. It's so like I don't understand how people can just like vibe it out and just like know immediately what color is best for any particular situation. I mean, I guess that you can like just by deciding like what time of day and what the environment is can do a lot of work for you, but there's just so many possibilities I get kind of bogged down in coloring. But yeah, so this character was like so colorful and I feel like almost none of my underpainting I mean, I'm sure it shines through a little bit in the finished piece and like the cast shadows and stuff, but I basically did two two paintings for no reason. Um, but yeah, it's a neat character. I just wish I could have done it a little bit more justice. And I relied a lot on layer styles too. I was like, oh man, this looks like shit. So I like threw in a fucking overlay layer to try to make it more glowy. And then I just used some like uh random pattern for the background. Uh it was from an account that I follow called Noisemaker Bot that just generates like uh different abstract patterns. It's a cool account. I like generative art that like follows an algorithm like that. Um, like abstract generative art is really cool, and like the stuff that people do with like Blender nodes and stuff. So yeah, this one was fun. I got to use a really chunky uh brush set for this one, and it's kind of textured too. It was nice. And yeah, these characters are just fun. They're like I think they one of them is like an assassin and the other one is like a stage magician who also is an assassin like on the side. So they're just kind of like, like edgy characters. And I got to use a super chunky brush for liner. I love chunky lines so much. It's so like it just gives me the good brain drugs to to do chunky liner. I don't know what it is about it. It's really pleasant to me. Um, yeah, I definitely prefer like thin line art is cool. It's really delicate or whatever, but I'm like all in for chunky line art. It's my favorite. Uh, so yeah, this is another one where like the colors that I started off with are not super close to the colors of the characters. Um, but I made it work. It was a fun challenge to try to like push the palettes as far as I could. Um, yeah, so they're like it's got this like CMYK thing going. Uh, so it's a lot more blue than the original characters are intended to be, but it looks neat. I really enjoyed the coloring of this. I liked the textured brushes. I feel like you textured brushes can do a lot of work for you. Like you don't have to render as much when you have a brush that has an interesting texture. It like adds visual depth to the piece. Oh, and also for a final step, I did the trick where you duplicate your line art layer and then add a what's it, Gaussian filter to it. It just makes it like a little bit I don't know, it just gives it like a softer vibe. It makes stuff kind of like blend together better. I don't know. I couldn't describe why the Gaussian line filter looks good, but it just I don't know, it adds like a softness or textural depth. This one is for my friend Rapid Punches. I really love their characters. They have like a whole like roster of little shark guys. And sometimes they do like one panel or one page comics with their shark characters, and I find them uh really nice and charming and amusing. I don't know. I really like comics in general. But I don't know, these guys are just cool. I just really love the idea of like shark people. Um, also, never mind that they're like obviously in a redwood forest, and how does that work with like sharks? Don't think about it too hard. It's fine. But I thought it would be fun to do like a Polaroid with these guys. And I wanted to do like a haunted picture. So there'll be a ghost orb that appears in and out of the corner. Um, yeah, I remember when I was a little kid one time, somebody showed me a picture of them. Like I remember my first ghost orb picture, and I don't know, there's just something about that kind of stuff that really appeals to me. Like even though it's probably just like a bit of dust like on the lens, I love a ghost orb picture. It's fun to just like imagine that maybe the world is a little bit more interesting, I guess. Man, I struggled so much with these trees. Normally trees aren't that hard to draw, but I think it was just this composition I chose uh gave me a lot of trouble. Yeah, here, I just like I felt like I had them in a good place, and then with my color palette, I was like struggling. I didn't know like should they be green, should they be blue? It was hard for me to like imagine the distance that the light should travel. Um, I probably should have looked at like some more flash photography references, but I just did it the hard way. I kind of like the base, like I really liked the base colors for this though. The underpainting was a really nice color palette. I really am fond of orange and yellows. And I think this is also the pencil set from earlier, but I used it a little bit differently here. Uh, so yeah, while I'm working, I tried to minimize the amount of layers I was using. So basically there's the underpainting on one layer, and then pretty much everything else except for the line art is on a layer above it. And anytime I was gonna add something new, like I would, well, the ghost orb is on its own layer, of course, but um yeah, this one is like my favorite. Anyway, anytime I would add uh something new to the image, I would create a new layer and I would just periodically merge it down. So I had like my bulk of my painting in one layer, and I tried to just consistently merge so that I wasn't getting too confused. And I still managed to have like a lot of layers in some of these. This is a very interesting character. This is like it's like a troll. I imagine like the kinds of trolls from like Hilda. That's the name of that show, right? Where they're like druids, right? It's like a character that's like a cactus like creature. But I'm pretty sure the artist describes it as a troll. Uh, and in their character description or character permissions, they said they wanted to see some plant gore, and I fucking love gore, so or body horror. I'm a big fan of body horror. Uh, it's just fun to draw and fun to look at. Um, so yeah, and the character also says that like the flowers, because they're a cactus and they're used to like a really inhospitable environment, the flowers are actually bad for them. Like the flowers like suck their life force, which is why one of their arms is all like weird and dried up. So I just thought it would be a weird, cool picture to draw them like trying to like fix their problem by like removing their flower eye and hoping hoping the good eye will grow back. I don't know. I have only kind of a vague understanding of the lore, but I was sort of just running with it. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this one. I love the chunky brush set. It's so good. Oh, and I liked doing the frame too, just like because I really like drawing plants. So I really enjoyed drawing like the dried flower petals. The background for this one was a little tough. Yeah, the color palette also ended up being really weird. It's like I guess kind of like a mid-century kind of aesthetic. Oh, and drawing water too. I feel like I went a little bit too hard on the goopiness of the tears, but I really enjoy doing like translucent materials. I guess there's some parts of rendering that I like. In general, though, I'm not a huge fan of it. Yeah, by the time I finished this, like, I realized this is actually kind of a cursed Lisa Frank palette. I'm kind of into it though. I really like candy gore type stuff. Stuff that's like really bright and saturated and like cheerful colors, but the subject material is kind of like creepy or weird. I liked the dissonance. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out too. This is a character of someone that I follow on Mastodon as well. It's their webcomic character. I think it's one of the main characters. And they have like, as described in the character permissions, like a very strange weapon. And the references on Artfight, I had a little bit of trouble like understanding exactly how this thing was constructed, but thankfully they had a pretty nice drawing of the gun on the cover of their webcomic, so I used that as a little bit of extra material for reference. But yeah, it's like a sci-fi gun, and I'm a pretty big fan of computers, and I just thought it would be fun to like imagine that maybe sci-fi weapons are closer to electronics. Uh, and so I just like imagined them like doing some kind of like maintenance or like upgrading a part. Um, just because computer surgery, like I like to upgrade my computer. I like to get up in there and like, I mean, sometimes it can be kind of annoying. Like sometimes stuff is kind of hard to to like get at and unscrew, and some like dropping screws is always such a fucking nightmare. But it's fun. It's like adult Legos. I don't know. Building PCs is fun. I like it. I approve. So yeah, this one was also kind of tough because it was a little bit of a there's a little bit of perspective in there, and like with what's the term, quotidian scenes like this, is that the right word? I might be mispronouncing it. Anyway, with these like homey kind of scenes, slice of life scenes, I feel like am like I'm inclined to not know what to do with the composition. Like I feel like I end up making things too like cramped and squished together. But I think I did an okay job here. I think that the composition, it's still a little claustrophobic, but it's okay. I think it's there's at least some breathing room through the middle of the figure, and the desk isn't too cluttered. Trying to simulate this light source was a little tough. Like especially the shadow that's like on the arm being cast from like this the muzzle of the gun. Is that the right word? It was hard for me to like imagine exactly where the shadow would be cast from. I don't know. The angles are hard. Simulating light in your brain is not particularly easy. I felt like I had a difficult time with the color palette too. I don't know, like cool color palettes can be kind of challenging for me. Like I get a little bit lost in the sauce when I'm working with a lot of blues. But yeah, I don't know. This one didn't compile correctly, so it might have a spot that comes out of order, but like this is fun. This is the I'm pretty sure this is the same brush set as the first one with the plants, but at this point I had sort of figured out a little bit more like the idiosyncrasies of the brushes and how to use them properly. Um, this is just a good character. I love a big titty anime girl. Who doesn't love a big titty anime girl? And I almost never draw stuff like this on my own, so Artfight's a good excuse to like break out of your comfort zone, and like draw characters you would never think to draw otherwise. Um, yeah, I love Artfight. It's so much fun. I get so fucking hyped for it every year. Well, this is only my second year. I knew about it before, but I just felt like too intimidated to join, which is probably a pretty common story. I think that's a lot of people's experience, but last year I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And it's been great. Um, yeah, I also was one of those kids in high school that just like had 3 million OCs and just loved drawing my little characters. And I don't really do a lot of it these days, but I still like I really love OC drawing. I love seeing other people's OC drawing. Like they're so interesting and creative. There's so many different like designs and concepts, especially on Artfight. There's like so many different types of characters. So yeah, this one was really challenging because the palette that I used was like this crazy like acid like purple green, and this character is pretty much only pink. Like it's a very monochromatic like pink design, but I didn't actually have any pink in my like accessible because of the gamut mask that I was using, so I just kind of had to like push gray and violet as close as I could to like give the perception of pink without actually having very much in or any at all in my palette. Um, like some of it looks pink, but that's just because of what it's like because it's next to green. So I'm just like using the complementary colors to kind of like trick your eyes, I guess, into feeling like they're perceiving. Like the skin tone is a pretty good example in like the horns a little bit, where it's actually basically gray, but because it's next to green, it makes it look more pink. Um, oh man, rendering these wings was so hard. I love the way it looks when it's done, but like drawing really intricate, detailed stuff like this is so rough in the moment. It's not even that intricate, to be honest, but that's, it felt pretty intricate at the time. Oh, and the metal, I really liked how the metal came out. It was very enjoyable. It just has this like holographic look. I think because the underpainting is so dark compared to the highlights, it like the contrast to the values really makes it appear interesting. Yeah, the hair also is pink and well, no, I think it's kind of a white color. It's like pinkish white, which I did okay. The hair also, this character, like, why did I render the hair at all in grayscale? Because I had to redo basically all of it. It's whatever. It's fine. I guess I kept some of the base painting in like the shadows. Yeah, I think if I take anything away from this, like, because this is the first time I've worked this way, so if I think I take anything away from this experiment, it's that I should apply the gradient mask sooner and try to resist the temptation to just get like stuck in the rendering while I'm still working in grayscale. Oh, and I used another gradient map to do the pattern to make the pattern kind of shiny of the nails. Yeah, I'm really happy with this one. I think this one turned out really well. And this is my final art fight piece. I quit at like the 27th of July. I was just like, nope, burnout, I'm done. But I managed to get 12 drawings done this year, which is pretty dang good. I'm satisfied with what I did. And this guy's cute. This is like a little like kind of a more cartoony, simple character, and he's a little shark guy. Uh, and I wanted to make him floating around in the water because I was feeling the summer vibes. I wanted to paint some of that like the dappled light effect that you get underwater. On this one, I spent like the majority of the time just rendering the background and it looks like it's done in an instant. It did not it took me like a whole ass day to do that water texture in the background by hand. Um, but yeah, I liked this one. I ended up having a very like pink and yellow palette, so I just went with kind of like a sunset vibes. Um, but yeah, I think this is a good one to end on. The pattern was really enjoyable to render. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say about my art fight experience. It was a good experience. I drew a lot of cool guys. It was fun. I mean, that's pretty much all I ever wanted at art fight is just draw some cool guys. So I feel like every art fight experience is gonna be a good one for me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble and watching some speed paints. Bye.